All right. Hey, Mike. Well, welcome back. I guess round two of Coffee with the CEOs.
Yeah, it's exciting. I really enjoyed the first one. I'm going to certainly enjoy this one because I'm going to learn some things from this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully it'll be interesting for all the people who might be watching.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be great. So you just took a trip.
I
You're
did.
up to DC. So I'm sure we're all interested in seeing exactly what happened up there.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's obviously a very interesting time for, the country and our clients, especially, as Congress comes back and is trying to push through this tax bill. So we were up there. We had lots of different meetings with members of Congress. The Majority Whip Tom Emmer was a very interesting one because his whole, I guess, role in this process is to count the votes, right? So it's a very, very slim majority in the House, and through the budget reconciliation process, it really comes down to making sure that all of the Republicans sort of are in line getting this bill passed. And it's critical that it gets passed to extend all of those tax cuts from the 2017 bill.
A career in financial services is about freedom and relationships, both for you and the clients you serve. By building intentional, authentic connections with people, we not only create an environment where advisors can succeed, but also puts you in control of your future. Financial success looks different to everyone, and it's more about the process than the numbers. If you are someone that is looking to make a difference in your life and the people closest to you, go to the website below and schedule a conversation today. Back to the podcast.
The timing in the House, right? So right now they're doing the markup. The House bill that passed was basically a budget blueprint that says, here's what we need to try to get to as far as spending cuts and things like that. So each of the different committees are responsible for finding specific amounts of money that they're going to be able to cut from their budgets. So that's like the markup process. So the Ways and Means Committee, which is probably one of the more critical ones to mark up their bill, was supposed to be this week. They pushed it to next week to sort of finalize some of the details of that. So, from a timing perspective, speaking with the majority leader and the whip, they really want to make sure that they can get the House version of this done and passed by Memorial Day weekend to then get it off onto the Senate. So, to the question of are they actually speaking to one another, the impression I got from the majority whip, Tom Emmer, was that there really isn't much communication going back and forth. They know that this is going to be a party line vote. So they want to make sure that all the members on the Republican side are, in line to not necessarily need any votes. And with a very slim majority, I mean, it could come down to, hey, are a few members of Congress out because they're sick, or they couldn't be in D.C. at that time to give, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson a little bit more wiggle room. So it's a very interesting time as far as how many of these Republicans are trying to say, hey, I want this, or I want some members up in New York, they want the SALT cap, their issues with state and local tax deduction. And so a lot of jockeying back and forth, but he seemed very, very optimistic. And I asked him, I said, you seem very optimistic about this getting done by Memorial Day weekend. And, he asked me if I coached any sports teams. And I said, sure. I coached my boys' baseball team. He said, well, would you ever go, before the tournament and say, hey, I feel like we're going to come in fourth place? He's like, yeah, I got to be optimistic. He goes, and it's not necessarily a fake optimism. He's like, I really believe we can get this to the Senate by that Memorial Day weekend, and that hopefully they can get their job done by 4th of July. So
it sits in the House right now, and then they come up with a reconciliation, and then it goes to the Senate, and they have to reconcile with the House. So the House has to go first?
Yeah, so basically the House is doing their job, and they're getting the, I think they put in their 1.5 trillion of spending cuts. And so each of the different committees has been assigned, hey, your goal is to find X amount of cuts. And so then once they get their bill done and in legislative language, and the House passes it, then that bill goes to the Senate, where they have the ability to sort of go through and, possibly have amendments and then come back. And if there's any differences, then they reconcile that and it gets passed and then onto the president's desk for signature. So they're really, really trying to get this done. And it's critical for the small business owner community. Certain portions of tax policy, like Section 199A, which gives all small businesses that fall within certain categories a 20% above the line deduction, which is critical. It allows them to keep employees on payroll and frees up some cash flow for them to invest back in their business. So certain aspects of that we're really pushing to make sure get passed.
Was there any indication as to how long this bill would be for, this tax?
So
keep, I guess.
Yeah, so like when we're up there, we're talking, one of our sort of, I guess two of our bullet points are we want the bill to be passed and we want there to be permanency around it. So the goal is to make these tax cuts permanent. Things like the 199A, even on the estate tax side, make that permanent because it's very difficult to have planning done when so much of it is uncertain. Now, one of the things obviously is that no current Congress can bind the hands of a future Congress, right? So when we say permanency, it's only as permanent as the next Congress who wants to change it. But certain things in the tax cuts from 2017 dropped off, and they fall off at a 10-year period of time. I believe it was 10 years. So some of those things, that's where it's no longer considered permanent because it would revert back to like the estate tax reverts back.
Sure.
So the goal is to have this like a permanent bill from a tax policy perspective.
It's interesting, as I see some of the things on television, is this a bill where it's going to help everybody? Because I think you see sometimes some channels want to talk about it from the standpoint that it's only for the rich. Some channels want to talk about that it's going to be across the board, helping people. Was there any indication as to how that would work?
So from the Republican side, their perspective, and I think there's a lot of data to back this up, is that the tax cuts from the 2017 bill had a major impact for the benefit on the middle class, especially things like 199A. So many small business owners are not like ultra wealthy, hey, we own Apple. It's not that these small business owners may have 5, 10 employees, and things like the 199A deduction are significant as far as them planning for cash flow and future investments. So obviously on the Republican side, they think that this was a bill that helped the middle class and helped everybody across the board, which is why they're trying to push it to be, memorialized for the future. So, I think the Democratic side, if I were being honest, I think deep down they sort of believe that there's a lot of the middle class who has benefited from this as well. They just don't want it to be any bipartisanship. And that was sort of the view we got from lots of the members that we were speaking to this past couple of days. Was deep down, some of these members on the Democratic side know that small businesses are benefiting from 199A, and I think they believe the bill is going to be passed because I don't think there's a single Republican who wants to be on the or let's say the wrath of the Trump administration if they don't get this done. Because there's so much that has to happen. I mean, you've got all the tariff battles going on. You've got this tax cut. And, in 6 months or so, we're going to be starting to talk about midterm elections. And, none of this should be going on during a midterm election.
I'm sure they all want to get it over with so that, on both sides, they both want to try to figure out what they can do for the elections next year to figure out who can get in or who can stay in, I suppose.
One of the interesting things they were talking about how a lot of these tax cuts and these provisions, they don't really start to have a major impact for 12 to 18 months, and so they want to make sure that the real impact is felt as you're going into the summer of next year, so that as these midterm elections are happening, there's a lot of positivity. So there's a lot that needs to get done in the course of the next, say, 2 or 3 months.
Was there anything on there that had to do with it as a 63-year-old? I'm going to be working for a few more years on the Medicare, Medicaid side that was addressed at all?
Yeah. So how they address it is there's not going to be cuts to the benefits received from people who should be receiving those benefits legally, right?
Right.
So when we were speaking with the Majority Whip, his whole thing was and everybody's talked about waste, fraud, and abuse for decades. Sure. You always hear that phrase. So they were saying, look, there's going to be things where, or at least this is the perspective they were giving. If there are able-bodied individuals who are on Medicaid and they could be working, maybe we put in some type of work requirement. So it's trying to, get them back off that government role and into jobs. And so, they all talk about waste, fraud, and abuse, but he was pretty adamant there would be no cuts to the benefits that people are receiving. And, if you're here and you're receiving those benefits, justifiably, that, there's nothing to worry about.
Right.
And I think that that's probably pretty accurate. It's a good, talking point if you want to scare up some votes. Say, oh, they're going to cut all your benefits. But, they talked a lot about trying to get tax on tips, no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security or overtime.
What about the overtime? Yeah.
And that's where the unique thing comes into play, where they have to then do these pay-fors, right? So the way it's happening right now and the way it's allowed to be under the budget reconciliation is that, it's taking the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that's been in place, and they were able to do a baseline budgeting. So they're acting as if these tax cuts are consistently going forward. And so they don't need to find new offsets or new pay-fors for the tax cuts to continue, because they allowed for that baseline budgeting. So it's almost like that was going to continue going forward, so they don't need to find new revenue to offset it. But certain things like the no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security or overtime, that's new. Those are new tax cuts. And so that's where they have to find some of those revenue offsetters.
And that's in there?
Well, that's what they're trying to get to.
Okay. They have to give something up.
You have to give something up. It's not going to be, hey, what they were trying to say to us is there's going to be certain rules and regulations around it. No tax on tips. But if you're making $500,000 a year, and I'm throwing that number out.
Well, yeah.
They said there'll probably be some guardrails around it and some income limitations around it. And that's where they're trying to factor in, okay, what's the true cost, right? Because they view any sort of tax cut as a cost, which is an interesting thing. I was asking somebody actually a couple of years ago when we were up lobbying for this bill, and they have this phrase, tax expenditures. And I asked, and I can't remember who it was on the Ways and Means Committee. I said, does the government view any amount of money that they let us keep as a tax expense, as an expenditure? And he said yes, which was just shocking to me. It was like, we let you keep tax dollars and the money you've earned, and they view that as an expense to the government.
So anybody that gets a reduction in taxes,
Yes.
that's a cost.
That's a cost.
Compared to what? Compared to 2017? Compared to what they assume a different bill would be right now?
It's like, hey, if we have a tax reduction in the overall marginal rate,
Okay.
they view that as a cost, because they reduced your taxes, so you kept more of the money, and that's a cost to the government. If there's no tax on tips, well, that was going to be taxed money, and now it's not. Therefore, it's a cost to the government. So when you hear the phrase tax expenditures, it really was any amount of money that they let you keep as an individual or business owner, which is just a weird way of thinking about it.
Who's doing all these calculations?
Well, that's where the Ways and Means Committee comes in.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of people like the bipartisan group on, Office of Management and Budget, and like whoever all those people are that score these bills, to say, okay, well, over the course, this is how much it's going to raise, this is how much it's going to cost to do these things. I've never met anybody on those, but a lot of the legislators on the Ways and Means Committee, they got their, they got a tough job. It's going to be very busy up there in the Ways and Means Committee.
How do you think this impacts the young people that are getting started in business or in the workforce?
Well, so, in the workforce, I think if we can have certainty, right? Again, it comes down to certainty around planning. The things that we do, if we're trying to plan for, 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road for clients of all different ages, having a certainty around the rules that we're playing by is important. Anybody who's looking to start a new business, that entrepreneurial spirit as they're growing in that business, having certainty around tax policy for small business owners is critical. If right now you're starting a business and you realize, hey, I can get a 20% above the line deduction with 199A, and I can make investment decisions in people or projects or new inventory because I have that tax deduction, but it may go away in 2 or 3 years. It's hard to make a 15-year investment in my business based on tax policy that might change in the next couple of years. So, being intimately involved in all this, and I guess that's just one of the things, I think is critical to take away is when you're up on the Hill and you're meeting with members of Congress or their legislative staff, I mean, the staff members of these congressional members, they're critical. A lot of those individuals, their legislative directors or their tax policy directors, oftentimes have no idea about our business.
Right.
They don't understand tax policy necessarily. And so
they're writing tax code without understanding tax policy.
You'd be surprised how many of them, when we sit down and we talk to them about certain areas that concern the financial services, the insurance industry, we're educating them so they can then go back and educate their members of Congress.
Sure. I mean, it's interesting for me because I look at it from the standpoint that I've talked to people before and they say, well, if you get that deduction, then the business owner just keeps the money. As a business owner, we don't keep the money. I mean, we hire more people. We do things like this to be able to put more information out to people. We're spending the money so that we can grow our business and grow our employees and help our clients make even more money.
Yeah, I mean, there's times where, lots of times small business owners, their employees get the paycheck before they do.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
There's often times where, especially as you're starting out, where revenue is light and you sacrifice your pay so that the people you've employed can keep theirs.
Thank you for joining us today. Through our shorts and through our full-length content, we try to put out the most relevant material for our viewers, for potential advisors, for people in the industry, or just anybody with financial interests in general. If anything resonated today that you want more information on, go ahead and click the link below me. Click on Talk to a Financial Professional, and one of our professional advisors will reach out to you and have a one-on-one conversation with your personal situation. Now back to the podcast.
The vast majority of members of Congress on both sides are normal, decent. They love America and they want what's best for America. Sure. They may have different views on how to get there and how to achieve it. But I've been in, congressional offices on both sides of the aisle, meeting with the different members of Congress and having great conversations with them about it. And, there is a lot more that unites them than divides them, but it's like all the, the fringe sides on both sides that really get the airtime. And the more you're involved in the process, the more you see that, and the more you see that they're really normal people. They want to know about their constituents. They want to know about the things that they're going to do, and if they impact you to the negative, they're not out there trying to, hurt their constituents. Obviously, the House is running for re-election every 2 years, right. So they're constantly being held accountable for the votes that they take. So it's just it's a fun process. I wish more people were involved. Whether it's locally or up on the Hill.
How would people get involved? How would people learn about this to get involved, whether it's in our business or any business?
Yeah, so if you're involved in any type of trade organization, or so the group that we're up there with, which represents financial security for all people, right, is an organization called FinSecca. So we're up there. It's about 11,000 financial services professionals who our job is to advocate on behalf of all of our clients and the people that we serve, because there's such a gap in the, I say, financial stability for people in this country. And anything that Congress does that makes it harder for us to do our job to help people become more financially secure is a bad thing. And so when we sit down, we have conversations with, different members of Congress. Like we were meeting with Byron Donald's team actually yesterday. Mm-hmm. And so much of the economy down here is driven by small business owners, 10, 15, 20 employees. Yeah. And, to sit back and say, if this doesn't get passed, so a good example, there is not a lot of bipartisan support for 199A on the Democratic side. And so if the bill did expire and that 199A deduction went away, that's going to be a very difficult tax law to get back in place.
Can you simplify what that is? I mean, we say 199A. Can you simplify sort of what that is?
Yeah. So take a small business owner, and there's some income phase out limits and all that. So I won't get into the details of the specifics because it's a calculation that's done. But let's just say you're a small business owner, and your revenue is $500,000 a year. You're able to then take a 20% deduction right off the bat. So it now drops down, to 400.
So your
As far as
business
tax
revenue,
rate.
your personal revenue?
Well, that's the thing. So many of these small businesses are pass-through entities,
right.
right? So it passes through right to their personal, return. And the reason why that was put into place was because back in 2017 with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, there was a reduction in the corporate tax rate.
Okay.
And in order to have, I don't want to say parity, but in order to give the small business owner that wasn't filing as a C Corp a tax break as well, that's where this Section 199A came in. So it just allows you to take 20%, reduction of revenue from a tax perspective off the top. Very 30,000.
A lot of your money's getting taxed. Even if you're putting it right back in your business, you're still going to get taxed on some of that money.
Yeah, all as a pass-through right to it. So
That's great.
it allows for people, like I said, there's certain phase-out provisions as far as income. So, but that's even more the point. And what we were sharing with some of the members yesterday was that because of these income limitations, it's not people making $3, $4, $5 million a year.
Right.
It's these true small businesses, mom and pop, who are saying, hey, we rely on this because if it can save us, $20,000 of taxes, well, maybe that allows us to start to put in some benefits for our employees. Maybe that helps us offset cost of health insurance or, open up a 401k and contribute to the 401k on behalf of the employees. So those are the types of things that really the freed up cash flow allows these small businesses to do. And it's critical that it continues to be in existence.
That's great. Do we have any idea when this thing, you said Memorial Day, pretty soon?
Well, so the House wants to have it done by Memorial Day weekend. There's sort of these like fictitious dates,
Right.
deadlines and stuff. But Majority Whip Emmer was pretty convinced that they were going to get the House version of it done and passed by Memorial Day weekend and then on to the Senate. Senate works a little slower. I don't think it goes past the August recess, especially because the president wants this thing signed and done so that the effects can start to, show within the economy. And one of the things they were talking about was back in 2017 with Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was that it took so long to get done that the true effects weren't felt until after the election in November. And it was kind of like because of that 12 to 18 month delay of having the sort of the impacts felt. So he wants it done, and what the Majority Whip was saying was nobody wants to be on the opposite end of an angry Trump administration.
I would think so.
So
yeah.
I think there'll be some jockeying back and forth on certain things. They have to figure out the SALT deduction, and the limitations.
So touch on SALT, because I don't think a lot of people know what SALT is.
So take like New York, for example. You could deduct your state and local taxes, right? The state and local taxes off of your federal income tax.
Right.
And
so you don't, if you pay a local income tax, you don't have to pay a federal income tax on that same money.
Well, it's based on your property taxes.
Okay.
Alliance Financial Group is committed to putting out the most relevant financial content in a timely manner. If you're interested in joining the financial services industry, give our team a call. We love adding good, talented people to our team at all times of the year. Click the link in our description to apply. Now back to the podcast.
Now, here's the thing. If the bill doesn't pass, that provision goes away, and now all of a sudden these members...
So they get what they wanted.
They get what
not
they want.
passing it.
Yes. So that's where some of these, it gets very tricky, is that now all of a sudden, hey, if this bill doesn't get passed and the old one expires, well, now all of a sudden our constituents can deduct their state and local
But even
taxes.
for the ones that want it to pass, they're going to need that to pass it.
Yeah. So what they're going to, some of them would probably, that would be the hill they would die on.
Yeah.
And that's where it's going to be a tricky thing for, Speaker Johnson to figure out, like, hey, how do I balance all these things? But he has done a lot of things that people thought he couldn't do and get done in the first, 100 days or so.
It's interesting that the things that we get to see or when things are done or when there's a big deal on TV, irrespective of which channel you watch, this seems to be going on somewhat behind the scenes. I haven't seen a lot of it on television yet.
Yeah, I mean, so the committee markups, was really fun is that anybody could go up to Capitol Hill, walk into any one of the House buildings or the Senate, and walk into a committee hearing and watch the whole process. Before I left yesterday to catch a flight, I walked into the Ways and Means Committee hearing room, and it was empty. It was quiet. Like nothing was going on because they're doing their markup next week. Next week, that place will be packed with the entire Ways and Means Committee and marking up this bill, assuming it doesn't get delayed again. But and so much of what derives our lives on a daily basis happens in those rooms. It's cool to be part of.
Is it publicized on dates and times? I mean, is that C-SPAN? You give me.
If you want to watch C-SPAN,
if you want to, stay hike, whatever.
Yeah,
but I think it'd be great for people, especially young people, to actually see how our government works.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun being up there on the Hill.
Yeah, maybe old people too, to see how our government works. They don't know either.
I mean, I feel like anybody, it's a representative government. You walk into that house and like every trade group is there. And they just want their voices heard.
Sure.
And, you schedule a meeting with, your member of Congress if you want to go up there and, walk around. Just open up a committee hearing door and see what's going on. It's a lot of fun to be part of the whole process.
It's great.
And
it's great to see it's that open. That's the whole idea of democracy, is that it's open for people to be involved.
Yeah. Yep. No, it's good. It was a lot of fun. And hopefully, they'll get their job done, because the impact on our business and our clients if they don't get it done, there will be zero chance that Republicans keep the majority in the House if they don't get this passed.
Yeah.
My take on it, but
yeah, that's important to a lot of businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
This podcast is intended for general public use and is for informational purposes only. By providing this content, Park Avenue Securities LLC and our financial representatives are not undertaking to provide investment advice or make a recommendation for a specific individual or situation, or to otherwise act in a fiduciary capacity. This information should be relied upon only when coordinated with individual professional advice. Guardian, its subsidiaries, agents, and employees do not provide tax, legal, or accounting advice. Consult your tax, legal, or accounting professional regarding your individual situation. Data and trends used were indicative of the date recorded. Opinions, estimates, forecasts are based on current conditions and are subject to change without notice. Jeremy Emmer and Michael Kochis are registered principals and financial advisors at Park Avenue Securities LLC, PAS, securities, products, and advisory services offered through PAS, member FINRA, SIPC. General agents of the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America, Guardian, New York, NY. PAS is a wholly owned subsidiary of Guardian. Alliance Financial Group is not an affiliated or subsidiary of PAS or Guardian. Michael CA Insurance License 0I00307 7974325.1, expiration 527.